Do you ever look at successful people and wonder, how do they all make it look so easy? Maybe you've been hustling or grinding or doing all the right things, but you still feel stuck. What if the real secret to success isn't finding some secret out there, but doing the obvious thing that we already know and just doing it a little bit better? Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers like you who feel stuck to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I help people like you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. Today, I have a special guest on to talk about what actually moves the needle when it comes to success, growth, and meaningful change. If you've ever found yourself caught in the trap of thinking that success is just about working harder, this conversation is going to challenge that idea head on. And that's why I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with Jon Goodman. Jon Goodman is an author, entrepreneur, and in my words, a modern day philosopher who's been behind the scenes of some of the most influential work in the fitness industry over the past decade. Jonathan is someone that I've followed since my early days as a personal trainer. I've read his books, I followed his blog posts, but his latest book, The Obvious Choice, is part business guide and part life manual. And today, he's bringing some of the best insights from his book and his decades of experience to help you create change and make it easy. In this episode, you'll hear one of Jon's most important mindset shifts and how it came from something as simple as getting stung by a bee. You'll find out what most people get wrong about consistency and how trying to do everything might be the very thing holding you back from getting anything done. Jon also shares a bold take on social media that could really change how you approach content and marketing if you're in that world. And maybe, most powerfully, Jon drops one rule for work, life, and training that explains why sometimes doing less can lead to much, much more. And with that, sit back and enjoy this conversation with myself and Coach Jon Goodman. So, Jon, you've been successful in many different areas or realms in life, from entrepreneurship, building a business, writing, as a father, fitness. What's one thing that you've come to change your opinion on when it comes to success?
That nobody really knows what it feels like. And other people might view me or some things that I've done as successful over the years, which is cool. Does it feel that way to me, though, at any given time? I don't know whether that's a common feeling or not. For me, I'm just doing my thing. I've always been doing my thing, making it up as I go. Some stuff has worked, some stuff has not worked. To an outsider, it always appears like I feel like somebody has things more figured out than perhaps that they do. And so I always have to check myself with that, because I look at others and I make up stories in my mind about all of the fuzzy slippers that they must be wearing and caviar that they must be eating and models that they must be surrounded with on their private island, because I see them getting some sort of accolade that I feel like maybe I deserve. Whereas in reality, I've met some of these people that I've thought that towards, and they feel the same way that I do. And so that's been something that I've had to really check myself on over the years.
Okay, I appreciate that success is different for everyone. And I think it's a great
Yeah.
point that sometimes the people that we look at as quote unquote successful, it's, as you said, it's like, well, what even is success? That's a thing that is personally described to each of us. So I guess, what is success to you?
To be able to have a big project that I'm working on, that I'm not working on for the money, but I'm working on because it makes me a better human being, and to have as much freedom and flexibility to work on that as I can energetically afford. So for me, that manifests itself most often in books, where I'm kind of always working on a book, and the books that I write are very selfish books. They're books that I write because I can't not write them, because there are things that I am trying to figure out and or make sense of that I've already done. Why did something that I did work even though it might be counterintuitive to how you're told that things should be done? I mean, that's the obvious choice that just has come out is you're told that you should create all this content. You're told that you should, I call it entertain the internet or win the internet in order to be successful. And yet I don't think that had much to do with any success that I've had. And then I look around me at all of the things that I own and all of the people that I've hired for just about everything. And I don't even know whether they have social media accounts, let alone their social media accounts influence my decision to purchase something from them in any capacity. And so there was this serious disconnect. And I was like, I got to figure this out because there's clearly something missing. Either I don't get it or there's a serious disconnect with what we're told to do and become and how to act and what actually moves the needle.
So the obvious choice
Mm-hmm.
is framed around business, right? For those who don't know,
I mean,
right? Yes.
yes, but I mean, it is. It's a self-development book masked as a business book. It's not a business book that is going. There are some frameworks, don't get me wrong, but it's not a business book that's like, here's how you make better offers, here's how you run these sales. It's more, hey, actually, there are different games that you get to choose to play today. And deciding on which game you play based off of your natural attributes, your elements of leverage, your desires, your ambitions, is probably the single most important decision that you could make. And then once you decide on that game, you have to appreciate that that game has within it different rules of engagement, time horizons, odds of success, and reward mechanisms. And you can't desire the rewards of another game. You have to understand that there is good information and good ways to play the game that you've chosen to play. And that also means, if you invert it, that there is good information for others that becomes bad advice for you. And you have to figure out how to delineate. That's self development, man. That's self help. That's how to live your best fucking life, is what that is. Yeah, is it going to get you more customers? Sure. Is it going to make you more money? Sure. Is it going to help you build a better business model? 100%. But those are all instrumental steps along the way. They are not final goals. They're instrumental. And so the book is really about final, like, where is this all leading?
So super powerful, and I totally get it. I think that the best business books are self-development books, and the best self-development books are business books, and the best fitness books are business books, and the best business books are fitness books. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows something I say is everything is the same.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah.
I mean, this is what
Well said.
the things that I like to talk about. I go down a level deeper. Like, what are the rules to the game? I love that you're talking about this as a game. So some of the things that I talk about are consistency, right? That's the number one rule. If you can be consistent, if you can show up in any area, the guy who's successful in business, in the gym, in a relationship, in any area, is the person who showed up the most times and never stopped. If you can become that guy or girl, you're going to beat out 99 out of 100 people out of the gate. So I'm curious, what are some of the other like foundational rules that you've seen play out across all areas of life?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll fight back on you on that consistency thing. I have actually, my experience is that adults actually stop evolving for the most part once they reach adulthood. They don't measurably get better at things very often. They stay where they are, and they actually become much more siloed in their attention. They drive towards specificity, right? They surround themselves with people like them. They consume information perhaps pertaining to their industry and not enough pertaining to other industries or other schools of thought or people that challenge the way that they think. And as a result, they don't actually get measurably better. So I actually, in the next book, The Obvious Challenge, I actually fight back against this idea of marginal 1% daily improvements as the way to transform your life. I don't think that that's how it happens. I think mathematically the math checks out. On a chart, I think it maps out, but my brain doesn't work that way. On what am I supposed to get better 1% at on any given day? How do I even know if I'm doing that? So that at one point in some nebulous future, my my chart is going to hit an inflection point. Will I even recognize when that happens? How am I to stay motivated throughout this entire thing? To me, that has shown itself to be one of those ideas that's really, really nice to think about and tweet about, but maybe not actually that useful day to day. And so the way that I think about it, Paul, is consistency is how you stay where you are, intensity is how you improve where you are. And so you actually need to seek intermittent bouts of obsessive intensity flanked on either sides by consistency. And the job of the intensity then is to actually leapfrog you forward. Like if you want to transform your physical level of being, your physical fitness, walk into any gym and you'll see people who have been going there for a year, 2 years, 5 years, who actually don't look very different than they ever did. And the reason for that is that they never actually took one period of time, call it 12 weeks, 16 weeks, where they're like, this is my priority. This is my big rock. I'm fitting everything else around this. I'm hiring a trainer. I'm measuring my food. I am monitoring my rest and making sure that I recover. None of those things are sustainable long term, financially, temporally. They're simply not. But at any one given time, I think that that's the only way to improve. And then what you do is you actually jump, so the picture on the cover of that book is going to be a triangle, and that's to delineate the three areas of life I think that we need to optimize, which is money, relationships, and health. At any given time, my opinion is that you might be on steady state, to be honest, in all three of them, depending on what's going on. But if you decide that this is a period for improvement, then you actually focus on one arm of that triangle and probably one aspect of that arm of the triangle, thickening it, really making that your focus while putting the other two on steady state. There's always this guilt of the thing that we're not doing whenever we're focusing. If I'm focused on my health, well, maybe that's taking away from relationships and work. But if I'm focused on work, maybe my health is suffering. And the problem is not in the gaining, it's in the guilt of where we're not gaining. And so in recognizing that it's these bouts of intensity that we're after, we can say, I'm in a period of intensity on the money line of my triangle. There will be a time when I'm going to be in a bout of intensity on the relationship arm of my triangle, maybe specifically with my kids, maybe with my brother, maybe with my spouse. And there will be a time when I have that for work as well, one aspect of work. It's about seeking intensity and flanking it on either side of consistency. Intensity is like going to the dentist, consistency is like flossing every day. And, you know, you need both.
Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now I just have to tell you about my free weekly newsletter. If you want to join the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content to help you on your quest for change, then click the link in the notes that says free newsletter right now. You'll get signed up for free tips that will make your change journey easier, sent straight to your inbox every Friday. All you have to do is click free newsletter in whatever app you're listening on. Okay, now back to the show. I love that analogy. 100% going to steal that. And I appreciate you pushing back, right, at what I just brought up, consistency, because I love this. Is why I love these type of conversations. Just so from my point of view, when I'm talking about consistency, again, thinking about the analogy of the game, when I say consistency, all that means to me is you can't win the game if you're not playing. So
Yeah.
when I say consistency, that just means that if you want to hit a home run, you have to get up a base. So whether you're striking out, or whether you're hitting bases, or whether you're hitting homers, the only way to what I call capital F failure is giving up or quitting. Every other little F failure is just a stumbling stone, a roadblock, something that you learn from, something that we grow
Yeah.
from. And I think the intensity piece is 100% needed. And this is one of those paradoxes. The book that I'm writing is called Making Peace with the Paradox, because all of this stuff
Mm.
comes back to this gray area of its consistency, but it's also intensity. And also both of those things, you can ask someone and they'll say, well, when you rely too much on this, then that's the wrong way to go. But somehow they're both the answer. So I 100%, I'm right there with you, right? If it were, I say a lot often, again, I say the same stuff all the time because
Yeah,
it's the same conversations, but if it were that easy, it would already be done, right? If we could just pick one and
sure.
go with it, we would have gone with it. You and I wouldn't have to be writing books or having podcasts, right?
And different brains work
Right.
differently.
Right. So,
I mean, I know a lot of people who can do a lot of things that I can't do. I need to be project focused. I need to be obsessively focused on something at any given time to the point where basically everything else that I'm doing suffers.
right.
I don't know any other way to function, but I accept that that might not be normal.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's just like you talk about, well, LeBron James or one of these people that's like that you the trade-offs you have to make in terms to being
Yeah.
successful in any given sport, or a billionaire who loses all their familial relationships. Like, we're looking to find that balance and the triangle, as you said. One of the quotes that I wrote down here from your newsletter, which I love, I'll have linked in the show notes for anyone listening, 5 Reps, one of my favorite weekly newsletters. But you said, change is hard. If it matters to you, make it matter. And then you went on
Yeah.
to say, if something like transforming your body is important enough to do, at one point, it's got to be the focus of what you do. Stop squeezing it in like grains of sand around the other big rocks in your life. And I think this kind of
Yeah.
speaks to everything that you just were talking about. And the long consistency is okay, but you need those bouts of intensity. And I juxtapose that with the whole point of this podcast. My whole the hill that I'll die on is that we have to make things easy. That people are struggling so much to do the theoretically simple things. Just work out,
Yeah.
just move more and eat less, just be consistent on social media, just tweet every day. All of these just.
Yeah.
And yet people are struggling so hard to do it. So if again, this is me asking you, how can the answer then be to make it harder if people are already struggling with what's so theoretically easy?
Because you got to do less. You got to do less. You got to do less, but better. We're lost in this world where everywhere you look, people say, "Hey, everybody, this is easy. Come join us." Hey, if you want to write a book, I've tweeted this shit. I talk about this stuff in the past, and I believe it to be true. But I believe that there's also more to the story. Hey, if you want to write a book, well, all you have to do is write 500 words a day. That'll take you less than 30 minutes, and in the course of 3 months, 3.5 months, you're going to have the first draft of a 55,000 word book. Well, you can afford 20 or 30 minutes a day, can't you? You can fit this around your other priorities, can't you? And yes, and because here's what's missing from that conversation. I sit down to write the book. Well, I need to reboot into my brain, into my hardware, the schema, the blueprint for that book. I need to remind myself of where I was. I need to reread the previous passage. I need to get all my notes with me. I need to figure out what I was saying and the theme of the book and reconnect with it. And by the time I've done that, 15 minutes has passed and I need to pee. And so, not to say that those daily reps don't matter, they absolutely do. But books don't get written in 500 words a day, 20 to 30-minute writing bouts. That's how you kind of keep the book where it's at. And then you take 4 days away from your family and you isolate yourself and you act like a complete degenerate and you don't shower and you don't shave and you write the shit out of that thing and you absorb yourself into that thing and you solve those puzzles that you would not be able to solve in just 20 or 30 minutes because you need 2 days to struggle with the problem. I think that if it matters, you need to make it matter. And I think if you take that back a step, Paul, you got to figure out what matters. You got to figure out what matters. Do you have to do content and social media? Fuck no. Fuck no. Walk down the street in your neighborhood. Look at every single business. Do you even know if they have a social media account? Think about the last 5 things you've bought or people that you've hired. Do you even know if they have a social media account? Now, I'm not saying that content in social media is not valuable, is not important. It 100% is. I think everybody should probably create content, but they should create content as a way to learn or as a way to serve their existing customers. I think that they should view it as a savings account, as something to invest into with excess time and capital, something that will add up over time. You don't build your business in a way that requires short term returns from your content and your social media. Like a savings account, you hope that it kicks off interest in the interim, but really what you're doing is you're making minor investments on any given time, knowing that if you do this for long enough, at some point in the nebulous future, you're going to wake up and you can say, where the hell did all this money come from? So my answer to you, Paul, is going back to the start. Like, the answer is you just do less. You do less.
I mean, 100% less but better is usually a good answer. People think more is better. I say all the time, if more was better, it would have been done already. More is not better. Better is better. Quality over quantity. And again, this goes for all areas. As you're talking about building a business on social media, as you said, you don't just post on social media in order to get new clients for new growth. You think of it as deposits in a bank account, and one day it does nothing, one day it does nothing, one day it does nothing, and then one day in the nebulous future, to use your words, we have this excessive community of wealth of whatever, you have an audience to
Right.
pitch to. But that's the same exact
Right.
thing as exercise. That's the same
Yeah.
exact thing as doing nice things for your wife or your husband every night. You
Right.
do these things not because of what's going to happen right there in the moment. One workout, you're not going to lift up your shirt and go, "Oh my God, everything's different." But all of a sudden, you keep working out 3, 4, 5 times a week for weeks, months, and years, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a little by little, a little becomes a lot. And so I love to see how these same, again, rules apply. But as you were going through that, right, you said that there was like 4-day gritty, grimy writing sprints, right? Like, I know I'm ordering pizza, I'm not showering, I'm living off whatever it is. My phone
I
is
do
on.
try to eat well because I
Okay,
find my brain
sure,
doesn't work well when
sure.
I don't eat well, but I definitely don't shower and I definitely don't change my
Sure.
clothes.
So, but it's interesting. And so, because in the beginning, right, you said that you are, this might be my word and not yours, but you can get a little bit myopically obsessed with your current project, right? Like you said, I
Mm,
want even success. You said to you is like being invested in one big project that you know is going to
yeah.
pay off, that you can put all of your time and energy, attention into. Again, at your own behest, right? That's different than being forced to, because it's something that you have to work on. I get that distinction. But to you, success is being able to work really hard on something. And like you
Mm,
said, different people have different brains. So when I used to train personal trainers, I was the manager of a big gym here in New York City, and my
mhm.
job was to teach other trainers how to sell and other such things. And one thing that I would always say to them is that, like, you have to understand that if someone wanted to do what you were doing, they would become a
Yeah.
personal trainer. They wouldn't hire one.
Right.
If someone wanted to, was as interested in this as you are, if someone liked to work out like you do, they wouldn't be hiring you. They would be you. So that when all of that is to say, you're saying like, okay, like people just need to buckle down, lock in for 4 days, but that's what motivates you, because you're the type of person who, when I say what is success, it's locking in on a big project that's going to give me some reward down the road. I would imagine there's a lot of people, when I say what is success to you, they're going to say sitting on a beach sipping mai tais, not having to worry about work, or having written the book, not doing the process of writing it. So how do I get that person who isn't as motivated by the actual grind as you are?
I mean, to find something that they can obsess over, everybody has something. There's this concept that I'm playing with for the next book that I call boring, not vacant. And the idea is quite simple. It's okay to be boring. It's not okay to be vacant. If by boring you mean that you walk the dusty stacks at used bookstores or go to antique car auctions but never bid, or collect novelty salt and pepper shakers, or are learning Klingon. All of those things are wonderful, truly. They might be boring to others. So long as they're not boring to you, I think that they're wonderful. What's not okay, though, is to be vacant, to sit and scroll and really have nothing that drives you to look forward to.
That's like if someone says, I have a job, my wife has a job, we're good, we're comfortable, and I want to spend every other waking moment of my life watching movies, and that makes them happy, that
Yeah.
to me is the defining factor. I will never tell someone to not do something that actually brings them joy in life. So that's to me the
Yeah.
guiding light, right? Because everything feels good before you do it. That's why you do it, right? Of course, eating a whole pint
Right.
of Ben and Jerry's sounds like a good idea before I do it, and then afterwards I go, "Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, I forgot I was trying to lose weight," or "Oh, I care about my health and what's going on inside my body." So
Right.
that changes things. But if you can go, I want to eat this pint of Ben and Jerry's, and after I eat it, I'm going to be okay with that decision, then I can't see how we can ever say that that is a bad decision because everyone is capable of leading their own lives. But it takes a bit of hindsight to make that decision. So, another thing that I've heard you speak about in the past that gets a distinction in hindsight that I'd like you to expand upon a bit is the difference between being tired and being exhausted.
Yeah. I mean, being tired is good. We're built to work. I mean, the body doesn't function when it's not tired. We feel all of these fear based emotions, anxiety, when we're lazy, when we're inactive. When our body is tired, we don't feel those things. One of the things that Jerry Seinfeld said in an interview, I think it was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, is you got to put the ox in the plow. You got to put the body to work. And he famously works out 6 times a week, even though he admits, he's like, I hate it. I hate every minute of it. But the only way that I'm able to continue to write jokes, the only way that that I'm able to continue to do my work is because of my physical practice. And also, I think, you know, days where I indulge in luxury, where I get massages or indulge in foods, or we have a babysitter for the kids, or whatever, days that you look forward to, you know what I'm saying? Are generally days where I find myself more anxious. I find a lot of my fear based emotions tend to take over. And so I think being tired at the end of the day is a very, very important goal to set. But being exhausted and being tired are not the same things. Being tired means you did something worth doing, means you did work worth doing. I find that I am exhausted at the end of the day when I unfortunately fell into the trap of being easily distracted. I think about brain fog as an indicator of this. At the end of my workday, if I'm exhausted, if I'm feeling really exhausted, right? I brain fog, I'm irritable, I don't really have patience for my kids. I just don't like who I am. And when I take note of what happened during those days, it's not a function of me doing more work or working harder. It's actually more a function of me working worse. I switched between too many different things. I allowed myself to get distracted and flip on social media too often. That's what I mean by exhausted. It's not a function of more work. It's not a function of harder work. It's a function of working much worse.
I think that's an excellent distinction and extremely important for people listening to understand the difference between the two because I think that especially in today's social media driven world and the grind, hustle, go, 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 work more hours, again, less but better to your point from before. But as you're saying that, you said that some of the days where you're the most anxious are the days when you have theoretically the least to do, the days where
Yeah.
you have a a babysitter, the days where you're supposed to be doing quote unquote leisure things. And again, this just to me, just, as all linking together back to what you've already said about what lights you up, what is success to you. And I'm taking notes here. And the first thing that I wrote down when we first started, when I
Mhm.
asked you about
What's that?
success, is just moving goalposts. Because
Yeah.
when I first asked you, I said, you've been successful in all these areas, boom, boom, boom. And the first thing you said were like, well, I don't know, to other people, I might be successful, but to me, it doesn't feel that way. So I'm curious if that phrase means anything to you, moving goalposts.
Of course, yeah. I mean, of course it does. Of course it does. I do feel like I've been successful. I would never tell you otherwise. I mean, I reached the point really in my early 30s, perhaps even before I hit 30, where I didn't need to work again. And I never, like, I grew up the youngest son of four, to middle to upper class Jewish family. Every adult that I knew was a lawyer, doctor, dentist, teacher, accountant, or engineer. My dad's an engineer, my mom's a teacher, my brother's a banker, my sister's a lawyer, my other brother's a teacher. It was never, growing up, everything that I ever knew was you get a good education, you go to university, you work a job, you move up the levels of that job, and you invest wisely and you save well and you build a good life for yourself, right? And then for whatever reason, life took me in another direction, and looking back, I was always disagreeable, and so maybe it fits, but I had to find some other thing to drive me. I say I don't need to work again, like, me, I've got a Casio watch on. Like, I don't have big desires for expensive things. I think that we should spend lavishly on the few things that are important to us and eliminate everything else. I've got an entire philosophy towards minimalism in the next book that I'm finally excited to share. But I think there's got to be something that drives you at any given time. I think there's got to be something that you work towards that challenges you to improve at any given time. And for a lot of people, that's money to get to a stable point. Hopefully, they've identified what is enough in that regard for them. And the goalposts of how much money they want stops moving. So my goalposts of what I want personally to fulfill myself continue to move. My goalposts for how much money I need don't. I mean, what's success? I think it's the ability to work on amazing projects with people you love in a way that fulfills you and gets you purpose, and gives you an excuse to dive really deep into something that is intellectually stimulating for you.
I would be inclined to agree. I love that, and I think, of course, you're right. That we need something to push us forward. This is again another paradox. This is right. It's like we need to be
What's
driven
that?
forward, but at the same time, our greatest two desires are at our base level, our human nature, are safety on one side, which is safety
Yeah.
is stay inside the cave, the tigers are outside, and then the other human desire is striving, right? Climb to the top of
Mm,
the ladder, social status, do better. And we need that inside of us to balance out, because otherwise we would stay safe, and stay safe would mean starve to death, because we would never try to do anything better. So everything
right.
about us is the the conflict between those two, and different people I think have different amounts of the two. So I think you're obviously very high on the striving factor, which
Yeah.
is why you ended up an entrepreneur. It's very hard to live that life and go through those bumps and bruises and all. I'm sure I know I come from a very similar familial background. I'm sure that a lot of times you had people telling you, just come work at the wherever, the bank is always hiring, the this is always, the board of ed is always good, you get a pension, you get a this, you get a that.
Yeah. I actually didn't.
No.
What's funny? I've never thought about it before you just mentioned it right now, Paul. I never did. I don't think I ever had anybody who ever said that. I definitely was told by well-intentioned family members, is this would have been in 2008. I was a full-time personal trainer. I had a kinesiology degree then. When the recession hit, that I should seriously think about going back to school, because school is the best place to be in a recession. And hey, maybe this personal training thing was fun for a couple years, but go back to school and get a real job. there was definitely a fair bit of that.
So even when that type of stuff doesn't come from outside,
Yeah.
it does come from within. Because again, you've launched books. I've watched your progress from afar. We spoke before we started recording. I've been following your stuff since, I don't know, 2012 or something like that.
Has it been
And
that long?
I've gotten your books that were like self printed and like you were mailing out. Versus now, it's like there's a publisher and there's a
Yeah.
media whatever blitz, and I see the difference. But obviously, in all endeavors, there are the ups that come with the downs.
Sure.
So especially as an entrepreneur, and I use this example specifically because an entrepreneurial journey is very lonely. That's the thing about being an entrepreneur. Eventually you have a team, you have everything, but again, it's your
Yeah.
business, right? You have people that, and that is very similar to a fitness journey or
Sure.
or anything else like that, personal growth, self-development, whatever you want to call it. So how do you get through those sticking points when
Mm.
failure, it feels so real because that's what's actually happened the most recently?
Yeah. You know the famous 80-20 principle, like the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your success is going to come from 20% of your actions. I have actually found that in business, it's more like 98-2. I've done a lot of shit over the years, as you know. I mean, I've self published 12 books, 7 digital programs, 5 conferences. I've had 3 different membership sites, a couple different coaching programs. I own a software platform for some reason now. I've just done lots of things. Over 90% of my income has come as the result of one book and one program. The vast majority of my reputation has come from one book and one program. But I had to do all the other stuff to figure that out. And then once something starts working, of course, okay, ruthlessly eliminate the stuff that is just, the problem, I think, the trap I think that others have gotten into over the years that I've noticed that I've been able to get out of for reasons I can't really explain is when things are going just okay is actually the most dangerous point. If things are going really, really badly, you can get out of it. If things are going really great, well, wonderful. It's when things are just going pretty good that it's actually really hard to reverse out of that and stop it. And so that's actually where people get stuck, where it feels like you're pushing up against this imaginary line where you're working so hard and yet you just can't figure out why you can't just jump. Probably what's happening is that you're working really, really hard and executing at a level 8 or a level 9 on a level 5 opportunity. What I found is that it's actually much better to continue searching for that level 8 or level 9 opportunity, and then you only got to execute at level 4 or 5, and amazing things happen. I've learned to liken failure over the years to a bee sting, where everybody tells you that getting stung by a bee hurts. And so before you get stung by a bee, you're really scared of bee stings. You're really scared of bees. You run away from them. You see kids doing this all the time. But then you get stung, and of course it hurts. But then you're fine. Then you're fine. And then you're not as scared of bees the next time because you realize that, yeah, it hurt, but I lived to see another day. And I hope it doesn't happen again. But if it does, I know I'll be fine. And I think what anybody realizes is that one of the worst things that can happen early on in somebody's career is actually for their first thing to work really well. What's better is actually you get kicked in the teeth a few times because then you become much less afraid to fail, to figure shit out, to get stung. And then over the years, you realize that just about everything is figure outable, but it takes courage. And courage only forms when you fail. Nobody can give you it.
Very well said. I appreciate that a lot. I like the bee sting analogy too. Definitely, again, stealing that too. And it's interesting. Again, like you just said, I keep the parallels between business and everything else. Like you just said, that one of
Yeah,
the worst things is to be successful right out of the gate because then you get used to success. And it's the same thing with fitness, right? The people who come in and they're like 45 and they're like, well, when I was 20, I looked like this and I did this and it all just worked like this. It's like, well, you're not 20 anymore, and now you're stuck in
right.
this loop of comparing to the way things were. You had this easy success. You had God-given genetics for
Yeah,
that time in your life, and now it's different. Like some people get frustrated when they feel like they're doing all of this stuff but they're not really getting anywhere. But I think that goes back to your earlier
yeah,
point about intensity. That's the person to me in the gym who goes to the gym every day and sits on the elliptical for an hour, and they've been doing
yeah.
that same thing for the last 5 years, and then they wonder, why am I not progressing? But in their head, they're like, I go to the gym 5 times a week for an hour. That's so much time. That's so much energy.
Sure.
That's so much effort, which it is. But now you've leaned too far on the side of consistency and not enough
Mm.
on the side of intensity. So it's a delicate balance that, you have to figure out.
There's a really interesting concept that I'm playing around with right now. Have you ever heard of Aristotle's golden mean?
Yes, but please elaborate.
Okay, so there was a paper that Barry Schwartz and Adam Grant came out with recently about it. It's called Too Much of a Good Thing. And it's about this inverted U hypothesis, which is basically Aristotle's golden mean. Basically, there is actually a mid-range of just about everything that is optimal, and not enough of it, of course, has detrimental effects, but actually too much of it also has detrimental effects. And in fitness, I think what you're hitting on is that there was another paper I can send you it actually where they talked about the golden mean specific to fitness. It wasn't by Schwartz and Grant. It was a paper by a bunch of cardiologists. And, you know, eh, the person who's on the elliptical 5 days a week for years on end, they're going to be better off for having done it than not having done it. Absolutely. Their basic health markers are going to be much better. It's a good thing to do. It's a net positive. Is it a good return on the time that they're investing based off of their desired outcome of being on that elliptical? If you ask most people who go to the gym why they're probably not there to improve their basic health markers. They're probably there for some aesthetic or ego driven motive. They might not admit that to you, but they would admit that in private. I am. And so, but at the same time, then, on the other end of that mean, on the other end is excess, right? I was at an event last year in Ojai, California. It's about 160 people, all multimillionaires, one of these like high-end business events. And one of the things I realized when I looked around at the event was that not a single person there was overweight. Now, the second thing I realized was that not a single person there was in noticeably amazing shape. Every single person I noticed seemed to have stumbled upon the same fundamental truth, which is that fitness for living a really high quality life, a lot of conventional success, but to have energy is very, very important, but there is a point of diminishing returns. I don't work out as hard or as often as I otherwise could because if I did it more, it would detract from the time that I have for my writing. If I did it more, then I would be maybe sore in a way that would make it uncomfortable for me to sit for extended periods of time. I think we need to recognize why we're doing this thing and to find where we sit in that golden mean. And it's not just fitness, of course. Money, right? Even family, friends. You look at time spent with people that you love over the course of your life. Our time peaks with our friends after about 19 years old and then falls off a cliff. Well, for improved quality of life, I mean, again, Aristotle has this ladder of different types of friends, but for improved quality of life, it's pretty clear that actually optimally you need one partner, one spouse, and one great friend. And you should really invest into that relationship. And you should identify other friends as being what's called deal friends, you know, friends where they are the friendship could be a real friendship. You could enjoy time with one another, but the friendship is defined by both people being potentially useful to one another. One of the there's a couple litmus tests for true friendship, but one of them is actually uselessness. The more useful a friend is to your professional ambitions or social ambitions, the less of a true friend they are. And then there's friends of convenience, community friends, neighbors, people who you play pickleball with, people who you go to church with. Again, very important, but not true friends, right? And so, as callous as this sounds, I think it's pretty important to actually categorize these things.
I think that's, I don't think callous, I think just realistic. We started this conversation talking about the game and the rules to the game, and that's something that I'm
Yeah.
very cognizant of. Understanding the rules to the game are what allow you to win. If someone handed you a box of Monopoly and it didn't have the instructions in it, what are the chances that you're even going to be able to play the game, let alone win it? It's probably close to zero.
Mm.
So when we're talking about this stuff, it's not good or bad or right or wrong. There's no morality to it. This is just the way that it is. I really like that uselessness as a litmus test for
Good
true
litmus test.
friendship. I think that's really powerful. I want to start to come together here. We've gone all over the map with this conversation. So one thing that I ask every guest, Jon, is what is the change that you want to see in the world?
I think we're entering into a time period where there is going to be massive unemployment. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to drive a lot of people to following their own geeky obsessions and maximizing those. And, you know, the rich are going to continue to get richer exponentially. The haves are going to increasingly have lots. The have nots are going to have a lot less than they ever did with automation, with artificial intelligence, with job displacement that's coming down the pipeline in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be like the iPhone. I think it's going to hit and we're not even going to remember what life is like before it did. And so one of the things that I hope for people is that they actually dive deeper into the thing that's weird about them that they enjoy that other people maybe don't care about reading about all day or listening to podcasts on the obscure thing, because there's going to be a market for coaches, there's going to be a market for educators, there's going to be a market for all of these weird little industries. Those to me are actually going to be the jobs of the future. There's not going to be lawyers, there's not going to be accountants. It's just go to any big company that has 50 lawyers on staff as their legal counsel. They're going to have 20 in a few years. They're going to have 5 in a few more years. All of these things that we've grown up to value are very rapidly being replaced. And so the things that humans can do better than computers, I talk about this in The Obvious Choice. Computers thrive when they're efficient. Humans thrive when they're strategically inefficient. Where are you inefficient? Where are you not productive? Perhaps do more of that. Perhaps dive deeper into that.
Love that. And I think it is the truth and either fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it. But I think that you can decide for anything to be a gift, which, as you said, if it allows us the time and the space to chase these dreams or the things that we didn't even know were dreams, then I think that can be a net positive for humanity. So, last thing, the last question that I ask all my guests, Jon, if you had one action step that listeners can take right now, today, as soon as this episode ends, as soon as they take their earphones out, to start making whatever change they're trying to make in their life just a little bit easier, what would it be?
To make the change, Figure out how to reduce the friction. And that probably is going to start with stopping doing a whole bunch of stuff that isn't filling you up. Figure out how you can do less, but choose what you're doing a lot more carefully. And then what you choose to do, go more all into it.
Love that. Well said. And I'm going to have links for everything in the show notes. I'm going to have your podcast, your website, the book links. But if people want to connect with you, people want to find out specifically more about what you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
On social media, I'm at It's Coach Goodman. If you like podcasts, the podcast's name is the same name as the book, which is the obvious choice. And I hope you buy the book.
Yeah, amazing. Well, also for anyone listening, if you've made it this far, I have 3 copies of the book. One of them I'm going to keep for myself, but 2 I'm going to be giving away to anyone listening. So if you listen to this and you leave a review, say that you listened to the episode with me and Jon, and I'll pick 2 people and send you a brand new copy of The Obvious Choice, Jon's book.
Love it. Smart.
Uh,
Appreciate that, Paul.
no problem. Thank you so much for being here, Jon. I really enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget to go and check out Jon's new book, The Obvious Choice. I've linked to it in the show notes if you want to go buy it on Amazon. But if you want the chance to win a free copy and also support this show in the process, go to Apple or iTunes and leave a review saying that you loved the episode with Jon Goodman. Leave a 5-star review and you'll be entered into a drawing to win one of 2 books that I'm giving away. All right, this is a great book. I went through it in a few days. Buy it, rent it from the library, listen to the audiobook, or win a free one here. Drop a rating and review to support us. But no matter what you do, check out this book. You will take away a ton from it, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. There's so much good, actionable advice in here. I promise you, you won't regret it. If you're really passionate about making this change stick, then I just have to remind you about my free weekly newsletter. Don't miss out on joining the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content that will help you on your quest for change. Go to the notes of whatever app you're listening on and click the link that says free newsletter now. And you'll be signed up to get free tips sent straight to your inbox every Friday that will help make your change journey easier. All you have to do is click free newsletter right now. Go to that link, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes of Change Made Easy.